Welcome to our channel. Today we're diving into the fascinating world of international relations, or as we like to call it, who's friends with Uncle Sam. That's right, we're counting down the top 10 countries backing America in 2025. Now, before you grab your metaphorical pitchforks and accuse us of ranking countries solely based on how much they like apple pie and baseball, let's be clear, this list is a bit more nuanced than that. We're talking about a complex web of foreign aid, military cooperation, and shared strategic interests, all wrapped up in a warm embrace of geopolitical expediency. Think of it like a high school cafeteria, except instead of lunch trays, we've got billion-dollar aid packages and the potential for drone strikes. And instead of awkward teenage gossip, we're talking about, well, let's be honest, mostly still awkward gossip, but with higher stakes. So buckle up as we unpack this geopolitical friendship bracelet, one strategically placed knot at a time. Let's get started. Ukraine, a country making headlines for complicated reasons, is on the front lines of a geopolitical tug-of-war with Russia. Enter the US with $16.2 billion in aid to bolster Ukraine's defenses. It's not just about money, it's about sending a message to Moscow. Cheers to Ukraine, the friend always in need of a helping hand. Of course, no discussion about Ukraine would be complete without mentioning the elephant, or rather the bear, in the room, Russia. You see, Russia has a bit of a history of, shall we say, getting a little too close for comfort with its neighbours. And by a little too close, we mean invading and annexing parts of their territory, which, as you can imagine, tends to put a bit of a damper on things. So it's no surprise that America's unwavering support for Ukraine is also a not-so-subtle way of telling Russia to back off, preferably while wearing noise-cancelling headphones, because, let's be real, nobody likes a Stage 5 clinger, especially not one with a nuclear arsenal. It's all fun and games until someone threatens global security, am I right? But hey, on the bright side, at least this whole geopolitical standoff is good for the defense industry, right? Because if there's one thing we can all agree on, it's that nothing says peace and stability like a booming arms market. Next up, we have Israel, a country that's been America's ride-or-die ally in the Middle East for decades. And by ride or die, we mean receives $3.3 billion in annual military aid. Now, some might call that a one-sided friendship, but let's be honest, everyone loves a friend with deep pockets, especially when those pockets are overflowing with advanced weaponry. But it's not just about the money, folks. No, this friendship is built on a solid foundation of shared values like democracy, a love of falafel, and a mutual understanding that sometimes you just gotta blow stuff up in the name of peace. Okay, maybe not the falafel part, but you get the idea. Of course, no relationship is perfect, and the US-Israel alliance is no exception. There are those pesky little disagreements over things like settlements, Palestinian statehood, and the occasional, bombing of Gaza. But hey, who's keeping score, right? Besides, it's important to remember that true friendship is about looking past each other's flaws and focusing on the things that really matter, like, say, maintaining a strategic foothold in a volatile region. And let's be real, $3.3 billion a year is a lot of money to just throw away over a few ideological differences. Plus, it's not like America has a history of blindly supporting allies with questionable human rights records, right? So we arrive at number 3, Jordan. Now, Jordan might not be the first name that springs to mind when you think of global powerhouses. You don't see Michael Jordan jerseys draped over tanks, do you? But strategically speaking, Jordan is essentially the adult in a room full of toddlers throwing tantrums. The US pumps $1.7 billion a year into Jordan, and no, it's not just because we have a soft spot for hummus and pita bread. Jordan is a vital ally in a region that's more volatile than a bag of microwave popcorn left in the sun. It's about stability, people, the kind of stability that's about as common in the Middle East as a teetotaling camel. The US-Jordan relationship goes far beyond money. It's about military cooperation, counterterrorism, and economic development. And yes, Jordan makes better falafel. Think of it as a buddy cop movie with more sand. It's about building a lasting partnership. Plus, Petra is way cooler than anything in America. Next up at number 4 is Egypt, a country that's about as subtle as a pyramid in a desert. It's big, it's ancient, and it's got a history that's longer than a pharaoh's shopping list for the afterlife. Egypt receives $1.5 billion in US aid annually, enough to make even the Sphinx raise an eyebrow. It's about geopolitics, folks. Egypt is a key ally in a complex region. It's a tightrope walk for the US, balancing aid with human rights concerns. Now, I know what you're thinking. John, you're thinking because we're on a first-name basis now, why bother? Why not just cut them off and be done with it? Well, it's not that simple. Egypt is the most populous Arab country, and these people have needs like food, water, and a functioning government. US aid helps fill in the gaps. It's about helping those who need it most. Diplomacy is about choosing the least worst option. And at number 5, we have Afghanistan. The US spent 2 decades, trillions of dollars, and countless lives trying to fix Afghanistan, with all the success of a drunk trying to assemble IKEA furniture. And yet here we are, still sending them $1.3 billion in aid. The situation in Afghanistan is more complicated than a game of geopolitical twister played on a minefield. The Afghan people still need help, now more than ever. Now, I'm not saying that throwing money at the problem is the solution. That never works. Just ask anyone who's ever tried to bribe their way out of a speeding ticket. But targeted aid focused on things like humanitarian relief, economic development, and supporting civil society that can make a difference. It's about helping the Afghan people rebuild their lives, their communities, and hopefully one day a country that's not constantly on fire. It's a long, difficult, and often thankless task, kind of like trying to teach a room full of toddlers how to play chess while simultaneously mediating a peace treaty between a pride of lions and a herd of gazelles. But we can't give up. We owe it to the Afghan people, and frankly to ourselves, to try and make things right. Will it be easy? No. Will it be messy? Absolutely. Will it involve a lot of awkward conversations and uncomfortable compromises? You bet your sweet almond-stuffed dates it will. But sometimes the right thing to do isn't the easy thing to do. And in the case of Afghanistan, the right thing to do is to stay engaged, to provide support, and to hope that one day those chess-playing toddlers will finally achieve checkmate, or at least learn how to stop throwing the pieces at each other. Baby steps, people, baby steps. Welcome to Ethiopia, a land of ancient history and modern challenges. With stunning landscapes and rich culture, Ethiopia is a gem. But it faces poverty, drought, and internal conflicts. The US is stepping in with $2 billion in aid. The goal? Stabilize the region and support development. Now, you might be asking yourself, why should America care about what happens in Ethiopia? Well, apart from the basic human decency of helping a country in need, Ethiopia is strategically important. Think of it like this. You know that friend who always seems to be at the center of all the drama, the one who could start a fight in an empty room filled with beanbags? That's the Horn of Africa. And Ethiopia, well, it's like the biggest, most influential kid in that room. It's got the largest population in the region, a strategic location bordering some real hotspots, and a history of regional influence. So when Ethiopia sneezes, The rest of the Horn of Africa tends to catch a cold. And nobody wants to see that cold turn into full-blown pneumonia, because that's when things get really messy really quickly. Okay, folks, let's set sail for Somalia, a nation that's been through more turmoil than a rowboat in a hurricane. Decades of conflict, famine, and political instability, the unholy trinity of things you don't want on your country's bingo card. Imagine a country where the government's authority is about as stable as a Jenga tower built by a hyperactive toddler. That's Somalia in a nutshell. Throw in terrorism from Al-Shabaab and you've got a recipe for disaster. But America steps in like a lifeguard diving into a pool of sharks. The US is throwing a $1.2 billion lifebuoy at Somalia. It's a gamble, but someone's got to do it, right? Now, let's be clear. Fixing Somalia isn't going to be as easy as slapping a band-aid on a scraped knee. This is a country with deep-seated problems that have been festering for decades, like a forgotten Tupperware container at the back of the fridge. You see, Somalia isn't just dealing with one problem, it's facing a whole buffet of them. Terrorism, famine, political instability. It's like the writers of a disaster movie got together and said, "Hold my beer, watch this." The US aid is aimed at tackling these issues head-on, providing humanitarian assistance to those in need, supporting the fledgling Somali government, which, let's be honest, needs all the help it can get, and trying to stamp out Al-Shabaab like a particularly persistent cockroach infestation. It's a long and arduous task, kind of like trying to assemble a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle while riding a unicycle on a tightrope. But hey, America's got a history of taking on seemingly impossible challenges, and sometimes, just sometimes, it even manages to pull them off. All right, let's shift gears and head south to Colombia, a country that's been trying to shake off its association with cocaine, like a college student trying to forget that one embarrassing karaoke night. For years, Colombia was synonymous with drug cartels, violence, and Pablo Escobar, a man who could make even a tax audit seem like a walk in the park. But Colombia has been working hard to clean up its act, like a reformed party animal trying to convince everyone they're into yoga now. And you know who's been there to help with this image makeover? That's right, the good old US of A, armed with a checkbook and a whole lot of optimism. The Americans are sending over $705 million in aid, hoping to help Colombia kick its drug habit and embrace a brighter future. The goal? To turn Colombia from the world's leading supplier of cocaine into, well, something else. Maybe a leading exporter of coffee or emeralds, or those little hats they wear. The possibilities are endless. Now, the US and Colombia haven't always seen eye to eye. Remember the whole supporting right-wing paramilitaries thing? Yeah, not exactly America's finest hour. But hey, everyone makes mistakes, right? The important thing is that they are trying to move past it and build a more, shall we say, ethical partnership. It's like that couple who had a messy breakup but decided to give it another shot for the sake of the kids. Except in this case, the kids are peace, security, and a whole lot of coffee beans. The US aid is primarily focused on two things: fighting drug trafficking and promoting peace. Basically, they're trying to help Colombia break up with the drug cartels and find a new, less criminal boo. It's a tough love approach, but someone's got to do it. After all, nobody wants to see Colombia fall back into the clutches of those nefarious narcos, except maybe Netflix, because, let's be honest, another season of Narcos would be a guaranteed hit. Right, South Sudan. South Sudan is grappling with a humanitarian crisis of epic proportions. Since gaining independence in 2011, it's been plagued by civil war and famine. The US has allocated $891.1 million in aid. This money is directed towards humanitarian relief and peace-building efforts. Sometimes it's about lending a hand to those who need it most. Now, you might be thinking that's a lot of money to throw at a problem that seems frankly insurmountable. And you wouldn't be entirely wrong, but here's the thing, ignoring South Sudan isn't an option. Think of it like this. You wouldn't ignore a leaking pipe in your house, would you? No, you'd call a plumber, probably pay them an exorbitant amount of money, and then spend the next week praying the leak doesn't reappear. That's kind of what's happening here, except instead of a plumber, it's the United States government, and instead of a leaky pipe, it's a whole country on the verge of collapse. The aid package is designed to address a whole host of issues, from food insecurity and displacement to supporting healthcare and education. It's about providing a lifeline to a country drowning in a sea of problems. And while the road to recovery will be long and arduous, the United States is making it clear that it's not giving up on South Sudan. It's a gamble, sure, but sometimes you have to roll the dice on peace, even if the odds are stacked against you, because the alternative is just too bleak to contemplate. All right, next up we've got Nigeria, a country that's no stranger to US support. In 2025, they are set to receive a cool $1 billion in aid. That's a lot of naira, folks. Or to put it in terms Americans understand, enough to buy roughly 1/20th of a Jeff Bezos space flight. But instead of funding joyrides for billionaires, this money is being funneled towards some pretty serious issues. Top of the list, you guessed it, terrorism. Specifically the lovely bunch of folks over at Boko Haram. Now, Boko Haram is about as popular as a pack of rabid raccoons at a picnic. They've been wreaking havoc across Nigeria and its neighbours for years, kidnapping schoolgirls, bombing villages, and generally making life pretty miserable for everyone involved. So the US is stepping in, providing military assistance, training and intelligence to help Nigeria combat this delightful group. It's like trying to teach a group of grandmas to fight off a pack of wolves with nothing but knitting needles and stern glares. It's a tough job, but someone's got to do it. There's more to this story than just fighting terrorists. The aid package to Nigeria is about building a stable and prosperous future. The US invests in economic development, healthcare, and education. Nobody wants to live where the only growth industry is terrorism. Well, folks, there you have it. The top 10 countries backing America in 2025, from the battlefields of Ukraine to the streets of Lagos. It's a complex and ever-changing world out there, and US foreign policy is trying its best to keep up. Whether it's fighting terrorism, promoting democracy, or just trying to prevent the world from descending into utter chaos, these countries are on the front lines of America's global engagement. Thanks for watching. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel for more insightful content. See you next time.